The U.S. House has just voted to end what became the longest government shutdown in American history. This deal contains numerous provisions that will impact millions of Americans, and there are some surprising elements buried within it that most people haven't heard about yet. Understanding what's in this deal can help make sense of what's coming next for federal workers. Healthcare costs, SNAP benefits, security funding, and the next few months of political tension. President Trump officially signed a deal to end this 43-day shutdown after the House voted 222 to 209 to approve the funding bill, which was essentially along party lines. This shutdown had severe consequences across the country, including air travel delays, closed national parks and museums, stalled SNAP benefits, and hundreds of thousands of federal workers going weeks without paychecks. The shutdown originated from a major disagreement over health care subsidies under the Affordable Care Act. Democrats wanted to extend enhanced ACA subsidies that help over 20 million Americans keep their insurance affordable. Republicans opposed extending these subsidies, arguing the COVID-era expansions weren't meant to be permanent. At first, the administration hinted at supporting some health care middle ground and floated ideas like federal health accounts. However, no actual legislative text ever came from those ideas, so nothing moved forward and everything remained stalled. During this time, the administration put significant pressure on federal workers through layoffs and even suggested that back pay might not be provided this time, which is something that's usually guaranteed after shutdowns end. This created enormous fear for families already struggling financially. The breakthrough came when a small group of Senate Democrats decided to break from their party and join Republicans in moving a bill forward without the health care subsidy extension. This move upset many on their own side, but the argument was that families and federal workers were suffering and couldn't keep being held hostage to the negotiations. Though unpopular, it broke the stalemate. Once that happened, the House took it up. 6 Democrats voted with Republicans to pass it, while only 2 Republicans voted against it. After weeks of recess, suddenly there was a vote. It passed, the president signed it, and government doors are opening again. Now let's talk about what's actually in this deal because it affects everyday people in significant ways. One of the biggest provisions is federal worker protections. The new law fully reverses all layoffs that happened during the shutdown. Every federal worker who lost their job is getting reinstated, and every worker who is furloughed or working without pay is getting their back pay. This is enormous relief for families who have been struggling for over a month. A Senate report from 2019 found that shutdowns cost taxpayers over $300 million, and denying back pay was something officials floated earlier, but now it's off the table. The government will be fully funded through January 30th, 2026 for most federal operations. Some departments like agriculture, veterans programs, and military construction have their full-year funding set, which provides at least some stability, even if temporary. Regarding the ACA subsidy situation, the subsidies were not extended in this deal. However, Senate Republicans agreed to hold a vote in mid-December. This doesn't guarantee anything will pass, and the House didn't agree to any vote at all, so the situation remains uncertain. Millions of people might see their premiums rise in 2026 if nothing gets done. Here's something unexpected in the bill that catches attention. There's a provision that says senators can sue the federal government for $500,000 if their phone or digital communications were collected by investigators without prior notice. This only applies to senators, not House members. It's retroactive to 2022, the same period when 8 Republican senators had their records seized during the special counsel investigation into the 2020 election. People from both parties called this out, with some calling it a slush fund, while others said they couldn't understand how it even got included. However, both sides decided not to remove it because doing so would have sent the bill back to the Senate and extended the shutdown. There are plans to try repealing that part next week, but for now it stays. The bill also boosts security funding for officials, including over $200 million for congressional security alone, plus additional funding for the Supreme Court and U.S. Marshals. This responds to recent violence targeting public officials, as there's real concern about increasing political violence. Another provision gives the District of Columbia more control over its own money. Previously, D.C. had to stick to its 2024 budget numbers, creating huge strain. Now the city can use its updated budget and continue funding essential services, something residents and local leaders have been pressing hard for. There's also a significant shift regarding hemp products. The new law changes the definition of hemp so that products with more than 0.4 milligrams of THC per container, or anything with synthetic cannabinoids like Delta-8, will be banned starting next year. This will affect those gummies and vape products seen in convenience stores and online. Lawmakers were split on this, particularly in states where hemp is a major industry. Another part of the deal revives the Wedgetail E-7 radar jet program. The Pentagon wanted to cancel it, saying it wouldn't be survivable in modern warfare, but Congress put $400 million into keeping it alive, arguing it's better to keep working on this jet while space-based radar systems are still years away. This is clearly more than just a quick funding bill. It's a mix of temporary funding, political concessions, and long-term policy shifts. Even though the shutdown is over, political fallout continues. Some Democrats are upset with how things ended, saying the shutdown allowed cruelty by letting services stall and pushing federal workers into financial harm. The White House, meanwhile, blamed Democrats for prolonging the shutdown. Even with the government open, tensions remain high in Washington. What happens next? The next big fight comes in December over those ACA subsidy votes. If nothing changes, healthcare premiums will rise for millions in 2026. The legal payout provision for senators definitely won't go away quietly, and there will likely be significant debate about it in coming weeks. Another funding deadline comes in January, and unless both sides want to avoid repeating all this, they'll have to negotiate again. These shutdowns don't just freeze the government. They freeze people's lives. They freeze paychecks, services, travel, food assistance, and even economic data. When it drags on this long, it shows how fragile these negotiations can be. For federal workers, back pay is coming. For those relying on SNAP, things should start stabilizing again. For anyone watching healthcare premiums, December will be important. This is one of those moments that reminds us how decisions in Washington impact everyday life in very real ways.